What are the fates of Peter and James? That's what we're going to find out today in Acts 12. Well, this chapter opens with intense persecution, and then we'll find out about divine deliverance. Right in the middle, we find these two beloved apostles we got to know through all the Gospels, right? Peter and James. James was certainly one of the main three. Peter, John, and James. They went everywhere. And they will have different fates. Have you wondered often why you see some people suffer and other people escape? And we see it, today in churches. We see it among our friends and our family. And we get that kind of same attention in here. That's what we're going to wrestle with, when we think about this in God's plan. Herod Agrippa, the grandson of Herod the Great, he's ruling. Rome won't call him a king. He wants to be king, but they won't call him it. But he acts like it anyway. The king has autonomy. The king has the ability to decide fates. And a vassal, a regional leader, does not. And so he starts, laying hands on members of the church, persecuting them, violently having them attacked. And in an aggressive and politically motivated move, he executes James. This is the brother of John. That's right, one of the sons of thunder. And boy, that's going to be hard because it was the three of them, Peter, John, and James. They got to see the transfiguration. But now James is the first martyred apostle. It's important to note that this James is, the brother of the disciple Jesus loved. That's going to be John. But he's killed with a sword. And it said pleased many local leaders. And seeing this violent act earned him some points, right? People were cheering him on. And we see that when someone cheers someone on, they start getting all boasty about it. Herod then arrests Peter during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We're back at Passover again. And that would have brought again thousands, hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of Jews to Jerusalem. And just like Jesus was arrested during this particular holy time, Peter too. And I'm sure Peter must have been thinking, oh, I've seen this play before. I know how this ends. And same thing with Jesus. The authorities plan to deal with him after the crowds disperse. Peter is placed under heavy guards, 4 squads of soldiers, rotating every 3 hours, and he's chained between 2 guards. More are stationed at the door. Herod's not taking any chances. We've had them leave prison before. Herod's not going to stand for that. And so while Peter's in prison, the church began praying earnestly, collectively. Some kind of miracle. Could it happen? And the night before the execution, Peter is asleep. And that always gets me. You're going to die the next day, and yet he's sleeping. He's at peace. He knows where his Lord is, and he knows where he's going to be if this is carried out. Maybe that's what deep faith looks at. I always said that, you could tell Jesus has that deep faith. He's sleeping in a boat in a storm. Now Peter has that faith too. He's sleeping in the prison cell, bound and chained, knowing that his God holds his future in his hands. An angel appears and strikes Peter on the side. Yo, wake up. That's not a direct quote. Get up quickly. So, then Peter gets up. The chains fall away. Get dressed and follow, is what the angel says. They walk past the first guard. They walk past the second guard. And they come to the iron gate. And it opens by itself. And Peter follows the angel to freedom, and he's not sure. Am I dreaming? I hope this was going to happen, but maybe I'm dreaming this whole thing, right? And I think that's amazing because, first of all, these guards are going to be good because they're going to lose their lives if someone gets away. So they're going to be very careful. But chains are heavy, and they make big clanky noises. So the chains fall, the doors open. This is not something a man can do, right? This is something God does. Then the angel disappears and Peter finds himself on the street. Awake, he realizes, hey, I'm not dreaming. This is a real thing. God rescued him. So then this is one of my favorite parts. I don't know why this always just kind of cracks me up. So a moment goes where it feels like a little bit like a sitcom, or I almost feel like I would be the Rhoda character. Peter heads straight to the house of Mary, the mother of John Mark. We've been there many times before. We think this is the same upper room that Jesus had the Last Supper in. And Peter knocks. And a servant girl named Rhoda hears his voice. She's in joy. She forgets to open up the door. She runs in and says, "Hey, Peter's outside." Meanwhile, Peter's like, "Guys, everyone, hey, they're looking for me. Could you open up the door?" He's probably glancing over his shoulder. I would be the Rhoda. That is exactly what Jill would do in that particular situation. So I kind of thought that was funny. But they don't believe Rhoda. They say, "You're out of your mind." Someone suggests it must be his angel, his personal angel, which is a reflection of the Jewish belief that personal angels exist for everyone. So they go and they open the door just to see what she's talking about, and they are amazed. Peter tells them everything that happened and report that James, the brother of Jesus, not the one we just killed, but the one that was skeptical, right? We know that right now he is not yet, but he will become the key leader in the Jerusalem church, the bishop of the church. But he wasn't there through this whole ministry of Jesus. So, in fact, he probably was one that came to the door and was like, "Hey, Jesus, we're going to haul you home because what's up, man? You're acting a little out of this." But now he's with them. He is with them. And so that's kind of interesting. This mention sets the stage for James eventually increasing leadership, but that's, chapters and books to come. So meanwhile, furious, Herod is ranting, right? He interrogates the guards and has them executed. Like I said, you don't get away with that kind of thing. And then maybe to get out of town, because he's just had it with Jerusalem, he goes to Caesarea, right? Or Caesarea. I always mix up which way to say it. But that's that beautiful port city I've mentioned in the past couple of times. And there, the people of Tyre and Sidon, these are going to be the Phoenician areas in part of Syria today. They came to seek peace with him. I guess, you have all sorts of battles throughout the centuries with all these other nations. And Herod delivers a public address in his royal robes, and the people shout, "The voice of a God, not a man." Are they sucking up to him? Are they, are they thinking that perhaps he is a God or a God? And immediately the angel of the Lord strikes him down because he did not give glory to God and do what Peter did, essentially. Get up, I am but a man, right? That's what Peter does. That's not what Herod does. And he says he died of a really gruesome death, eaten by worms. And that is the end of Herod Agrippa. I should say it like Lord of the Rings. And thus ends Herod Agrippa I. And what I'm going to meditate on this particular week is the fact that James dies, Peter lives. Both faithful, both loved by Jesus, both leaders in the church, and their outcomes were so dramatically different. It wasn't because James lacked anything or did something wrong. It was not because Peter was more spiritual or did more good things. It's because God has a plan for everybody, each a little bit different. Peter had more to do. James, his time was done. It's ready for his eternal rest. That reminds me, we can never judge God, his love, his actions, why this person and not that person, or look at someone at their worth by what happens to them. We don't see the whole plan, but God does. Like I said, I always bring it back to that Prince Caspian story where that kid is asking Aslan, well, why did all these things, good things, happen to that person, but not me? Everybody has a different story, and God uses them all. And what I'm going to pray about is having that type of boldness that prays for Peter like they did. When you pray, you expect God to act. And they were shocked, but don't be shocked when God answers. But pray with exception. And I'm going to ask. See, I always like to back things up one step. If I don't feel like I can pray that boldly, I'm going to pray that I can pray that boldly. I'm going to take it back. God, give me that boldness so that I can pray like you want. And what I'm going to share with other people is that idea that Peter slept the night before his execution. That is the kind of peace faith brings. I appreciate you listening to this and watching this. Remember, you can always email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. I appreciate it, whether you're watching or listening. Put a comment in here. Send me an email. Tell me how you're doing. Tell me if you need some tools that would be helpful to you. I'm just a one podcast Jill, but you can email me, and if it's possible for me to make a tool, I'd be happy to do it. Thanks so much, and have a great day.